The government needs to stop spreading misinformation that natural and saturated fats are bad for you, because that has never been supported by science. And we've moved people to a high refined carbohydrate diet, to ultra processed foods, ignoring all the chemicals in the ultra processed foods. We need to get back to whole foods and clean meats. What the heck are we doing? We have so many people on medications. We can't just keep going down this road. Don't American kids deserve the healthier version of food that American companies make?
The last remnant, when the earth is gone and it's nothing but, the cockroaches have taken over and the aliens have invaded and the apocalypse has happened and the human race has been annihilated, the only people left standing will be the listeners of the Chad Prather Show. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the show. As always, I want you to go where podcasts are offered. Leave a 5-star rating. That's what we deserve. Leave a review. You could say pretty much anything you want to say. It'd be nice if you'd say something nice, but you don't have to. Let us know what you think about the program and some of our recent guests. We've had some incredible conversations. You can always drop me an email, chad@thechadprathershow.com. And you can find me over at watchchad.com, where all the fun stuff is. You can find me out for live events and just out there stirring the pot, having a good time. We are in a massive epidemic, and it's not the one that the federal government wants to keep foisting on us. It's the one that's self-induced. Our health is terrible. We live in a country where even our most impoverished and so-called homeless people have an obesity problem. What are we putting in our bodies? I think the biggest drug that we take is the food we eat every day. And, you guys have seen the memes, you've seen the studies, you've seen the reports on social media that talk about what other countries refuse to feed their people, but yet we're ingesting it at massive amounts. And all you have to do is look in the mirror to see the results. It's a problem. It is a problem. Well, the author of the brand new book, Blind Spots, Dr. Marty Makary, Dr. Marty Makary from Johns Hopkins, is joining me today. I got questions, doctor. First of all, how are you, sir? You're a busy man. Thank you for the time out of your schedule. How are you?
It's great to see you, Chad. I've heard great things about you, so it's an honor to be here.
Then obviously you haven't read the reviews of the show. So that's good. That's good. We'll keep on believing that. I'm a big fan of yours. I have seen a number of I've seen your testimony with Senate. I've read your materials, your books. I'm anxious to read Blind Spots. I haven't yet. Just came out, just hit the New York Times bestseller list. Congratulations. Thanks. For that.
Appreciate it.
Before I ask you some of the questions that I have, talk to me a little bit about this book. What's the premise? What's it about? And what do you hope people take away from Blind Spots?
Well, the medical establishment can do a lot of good, but the power of groupthink is a powerful force, and it's resulted in the modern medical field messing up on a lot of major health issues. We have these giant blind spots. As smart people who go to medical school and practice medicine, if you look at the health of the population, we're sicker now than we were just a generation ago. A lot sicker. Everything is going up. And so we're not talking about the root causes. Those are some of the biggest blind spots in modern medicine, the things we're not talking about that we should be talking about.
So when you say blind spots, these things that, I think to myself, I go to my primary care physician. And he gets a blood test. He takes a look at all the things that's wrong with me. He says, okay, you need more vitamin D. Your triglycerides are high. Let's put you on a statin. Let's bring your cholesterol down, but let's destroy your liver. You need to get on a lisinopril with a hydrochlorothiazide to get your blood pressure under control. You got high uric acid, so let's put you on allopurinol. We're medicating ourselves to death, when pretty much everything that I just described are things that could be controlled with the things that we're consuming on a day-to-day basis. We just came through 3 to 4 years of a nightmare pandemic situation, which I'm not sure that the virus was as bad as the protocol that they put on everybody, and just the psychological damage that was done because of that. What do we do? How do we look through? Because to most of us, the average American, we say, well, we go to the expert. We go to the doctor. He's the guy who spent, hundreds of thousands of dollars getting himself educated, and he's the one who's practicing medicine. How do we know what's the truth? Is he in another room Googling our conditions and trying to come up with what we need to be doing? Or can we even trust the medical establishment in America anymore? What are your thoughts?
Well, look, public trust in doctors and hospitals is way down, according to a survey that just was done a month ago. It's down from 71% down to 40%. That's a huge drop. Yeah, 31-point drop in just the little peek that the public got on how a broader medical priesthood works. Now, we're good at certain things. We're good at emergencies. We're good at very sophisticated operations, like the operations that I do with my colleagues at Johns Hopkins. But when it comes to health, we have conditioned doctors to really just use medications and a scalpel. And we've done a terrible thing to doctors. We've not given them the time or resources to talk about the root causes. Food is medicine, the environmental exposures that cause cancer. Maybe we need to talk about school lunch programs, not just putting every kid on Ozempic. And maybe we need to talk about the toxins and pesticides and things, chemicals in our food that are added. They're engineered and added to make these foods addictive. We can't just focus on the chemotherapy to treat cancer without talking about these underlying causes. So I think we've done a terrible thing to doctors in America. I didn't spend a second in medical school learning about nutrition. It wasn't taught. We didn't learn about people dying from medical errors or being over-medicated. We didn't talk about the fact that 82% of research studies on food ingredients, that is the chemical additives, show they're harmful, but 93% of the studies funded by the food industry say that they're not bad for you. So we have to recognize that we've poisoned our food supply, and these epidemics that are increasing is not the fault of the person. We're not seeing a surge in autoimmune diseases because women have not followed our instructions. We're seeing it because we've poisoned our food supply.
You guys know that I love Patriot Mobile. They are good friends and great patriots. And they realize that Americans are tired. They're tired and frustrated by the stalling economy, the inflation, the endless wars, the relentless assault on our values. And thankfully, folks over at Patriot Mobile, they got your back. They still believe in America. They believe in our Constitution. And I'm so proud over the years to have partnered with them and continue to do it because Patriot Mobile, they're on the front lines, man. They're putting their money where their mouth is, and they're fighting for the First and Second Amendments, the sanctity of life, our military and first responder heroes. I want you to take a stand with them on conservative causes and put America first by switching over to Patriot Mobile today. You're going to get the same nationwide coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile, they operate on all three major networks, plus they back their service with a full coverage guarantee. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team will take care of you. They will find the best plan for your needs. You can keep your number, keep your phone, or you can upgrade, and they'll help. Go to patriotmobile.com/Chad or call them 972-PATRIOT. You do it right now, you get a free month when you use the offer code CHAD. I spell it Chad. Use that offer code and don't get fooled by the other providers pretending to share your values or have the same coverage. They don't, and they can't. So join me. Switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider. That's Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/Chad. Call them 972-PATRIOT. Get your free month of service today. Use that promo code Chad. Hang tight. We'll be right back. So I've talked with a number of folks about this. This is a deeply concerning thing for me. As I alluded to earlier, there are ingredients that are not allowed in certain places, like the country of Italy. If you read their ingredients on a bottle or on a box of cereal, it's completely different from what's allowed here in the U.S. Is that a matter of convenience? Is it a time and money saving thing? Why is the Well, first of all, is the food healthier in other places, or are they just leaving out certain preservatives? Are we misled in thinking that what we're eating here is poison?
We have a lot of poison in the food supply, and for the most part, we've turned a blind eye to it. So we have basically a standard in the United States that kind of lets food companies come up with any chemical they want and then just go ahead and put it in the food supply as long as they kind of think it's generally safe. But in other countries in Europe and in Canada, they've said, no, there's some data that suggests some real health concerns on how these chemicals, now don't fall for the cutesy names, food dye like yellow dye number 5, The yellow dye number 5 is tartrazine. It's a coal tar byproduct that's been associated with hormone dysregulation and learning disabilities and even genome disruption. Here is Fruit Loops made for the United States by Kellogg. Okay, and this is what it looks like in Canada. And you see, it doesn't have these very colorful dyes. They're just really designed to appeal to kids. And so when you have these chemicals in these food dyes go down the GI tract, children have an immune system, as we all do, that lines the GI tract, and it's reacting to these chemicals. And they get inflammation. And it's causing this chronic, constant inflammation that makes them feel sick. And before you know it, they're on all these medications. So, that's a big problem. Some states are now starting to ban these food dyes from school lunch programs, but we've had this giant blind spot when it comes to our food supply. Same thing with pesticides.
So in 2008, I woke up one morning with severe abdominal pain. Didn't know what was wrong. Didn't know if I had kidney stones. Didn't know if I had an appendicitis. I didn't know what was going on. Long story short, ended up in the hospital for 4 or 5 days because I had diverticulitis. And then in 2018, I had a colectomy. They cut a foot of me out. So they took, wound up with a fistula that was, I actually went to a Care Now facility, a little doc in the box, if you will. And I said, I think I have a fistula. and the PA who was there looked at me and said, what are you talking about? And I said, well, there is a hole. I can tell there is a hole between my my intestines and my bladder. And I think it's related to diverticulitis. I went to my urologist and he said, oh, somebody's been on the internet. And I said, no. So they did the very fun process of giving me a cystoscopy. They saw air moving in my bladder and they said, 5 days later, I was on an operating table and they cut me open and took my intestines out. I look at that and I go, what did I do to myself over the period of my life that got me up to the age of, my late 30s, and all of a sudden I wake up in severe chronic pain, lived with it for 10 years before I finally had the surgery. Is that connected with the food we eat? Is that a genetic disposition? Is it something that when people are dealing with these gastro problems, these intestinal problems, that they can fix with their diet? Or is it too little too late at this point? Have we just poisoned our systems and there's no fixing it?
Well, look, when you see all of these diseases surge in our generation, diseases that were ultra rare just 2 generations ago, you've got to ask, what are we doing differently? And why do we see a lower prevalence of these same chronic diseases or problems in the Amish communities that don't eat the processed food, or in other countries where they eat more whole foods? Or why do we have people with chronic abdominal pain come into the doctor here and we throw meds at them and nothing works? But when they go to Italy for the summer, they come back saying, for the first time in my life, I felt better. The pain went away. We hear enough of these things that we need to be able to just use some basic logic. Now, I don't know of any direct association with diverticular disease. It's generally believed to be a collagen issue. But when we are inflaming the GI tract constantly by putting chemicals down the pipes, and then the body reacts with this immune response that is dull and constant, of course that inflammation is going to cause different problems.
Hey guys, let me ask you a question. Do you feel like our country is going in the right direction, or are we sort of kind of falling apart? Well, if you're feeling alarmed, you're not alone. I feel the same thing, and a lot of people do. That's why a lot of Americans from a lot of different walks of life are taking action right now to prepare for whatever's coming next. And it starts with having an emergency food supply. Storing food in your home, it's the right thing to do because, hey, we live in crazy times and you never know what's coming next. So a lot of people, they're out there preparing. Right now, you can get ready as well with the 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. It comes with delicious food. Let me tell you something. Their 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply is fantastic. You need to get one kit for every member of your family. I mean, it's got food you wouldn't expect in there, like creamy stroganoff, honey wheat bread, mushroom rice pilaf, The entire kit is going to offer 2,000 calories every day, and the food kit's going to last up to 25 years in proper storage. And who knows what the country's going to look like by then. Just be ready. So when that day comes, you'll know you got what you need. So go to preparewithchad.com and order your 3-month emergency food kit from My Patriot Supply. Go to preparewithchad.com.
I often joke about the way the pharmacies are set up. The pharmacies are set up historically by your age. You come in the front row, they got the Cokes and the candy and the comic books for the kids. And then there's the acne cream and prophylactics for the teenagers, one aisle back. And then there's makeup and hair products and razors, another aisle back for the adults. And now we're back there with the more mature adults with the Asper cream and the Dr. Scholl's and the Just for Men. And now we're in the very back where they have the good drugs, and we're standing in line. We can see the diabetic socks and the walkers and the pre-cut tennis balls that go on the feet of the walkers. And we're waiting on, and I always say we're going to be standing in the line at the Walgreens one day, and the exit door in the back is going to blow open, and Jesus is going to be standing there waiting to take us to heaven or something. So we've spent our entire life in the pharmacy, but we're back there waiting on those drugs. And I've often contended that, Big Pharma, to use that phrase, it is a big industry. I don't think they want us dead, but they certainly want us dependent because we are their money-making product. They will keep us alive. It's not a great alive. It's not an abundant alive. They know we're sick. They're not doing much about us being sick in regard to that. And so we're kind of maintaining a stage of life that keeps us, breathing. But is it a real quality of life? So you've testified in front of decision makers, senators, congressmen. Are they listening? Are they hearing to what you're saying to them? Or are we just doomed to continue repeating this cyclical process downward?
Well, I've testified a bunch of times, and most of the time, nobody's listening. You're not going to convince anybody. But the most recent time was different. There is some new momentum now because a bunch of us are going directly to the public and saying, hey, look at our healthcare system. We've failed on chronic diseases. The population is sicker. We're on more medicines than ever in history. We're spending a ton of money out of our paychecks for health insurance and for the Medicare excise tax with no end in sight. We're feeding a giant industry. We have got to stop and look around us and say, what is going on here? We have poisoned our food supply, engineered these highly addictive chemicals that we've added, laced our foods with chemicals. The average school lunch program in one little study has 38 different pesticides. What are we doing to our nation's children?
Wow.
Half are obese or overweight. Autism goes up every year. It's gone up 14% every year for 23 years. Autoimmune diseases are going up. Cancers in the GI tract are going up in young people. 1 in 22 kids in California now is born with autism. What the heck are we doing? We have so many people on medications. We can't just keep going down this road because you're living a normal life. You think you're eating what you're told is healthy. It's really misinformation from the government, from the food pyramid. We've ignored these blind spots. And now it's time for your attention deficit disorder medication. And now it's time for your chronic antibiotics that you really don't need. And then it's time for your statin. And then it's time for your lisinopril. And then it's time for your metformin. What the heck are we doing? We've got to stop and ask, what are the root causes of these problems?
So at the end of the day, like we all, especially my audience, would say, the government's not coming to save us. We can't rely on them. We've got to rely on ourselves. Yeah. So I know that there's a lot of people out there who are trying different things or trying different diets. I mean, how many different fads have there been? You're eating the power foods. You're eating the Mediterranean diet. People are carnivore. People are keto. People are vegan. They're gluten free. Is there a place to land in all of that? What's your thought on fads versus diets versus lifestyle? Just what's the right nutrition look like? I mean, you're kind of walking through a minefield at this stage when you go to the grocery store. Do you recommend and I'm asking you a lot of questions here, but I mean, do you go to the grocery store? Do you go to the farmer's market, or is it all cursed? What do we do?
Well, first of all, every diet you mentioned has been studied and they all show some benefit. And the reason is that when you compare them to the standard American diet, any diet is going to do better than the standard American diet.
Right.
So there's a couple things we need to recognize. One, the government needs to stop spreading misinformation that natural and saturated fats are bad for you, because that has never been supported by science. And we've moved people to a high refined carbohydrate diet, to ultra processed foods, ignoring all the chemicals in the ultra processed foods. We need to get back to whole foods and clean meats. By the way, these are biblical principles: whole foods, clean meats, meditating, community. These are, the medical field feels like they discovered this stuff sometimes recently. These are basic principles. The gut health is probably the issue that people are ignoring the most. You don't want to take antibiotics you don't need. It's altering the bacteria in the gut, called the microbiome. We've got millions of different bacteria. They live in a harmony. They're involved in digestion, immunity, so many different things. And what we're doing is we're carpet bombing the microbiome our entire lives with unnecessary antibiotics. C-sections even alter the microbiome. Both antibiotics and C-sections save lives, but they're overused. And people need to know it's changing your gut and your gut health. If pesticides kill pests, what do you think they're doing to the bacteria that line your gut? Fluoride. Now it's coming into question after a court case 2 weeks ago. If fluoride kills bacteria in the mouth to reduce cavities, what's it doing to the bacteria in the microbiome of your gut? So we've got to detox. We've got to stop all of, reduce these exposures, and get people back to normal food that comes from good soil, and meats that come from well-raised animals.
So I'm in Texas. We love beef, right? I tend towards a higher protein diet. When I try to, I have my lapses. I have my blind spots, Doc. Okay, I do, and I try not to live with the guilt. I try to get back on track. But you said something a minute ago that makes me want to avoid all salads and completely miss the organic section in the grocery store. And you talk about the pesticides. When we're spraying our fields with Roundup or whatever, pesticide number 5, if it's going to kill all the weeds, what do we think it's going to do to the inside of our bodies, right? So I see this stuff, and I think that it's I talked with someone years ago, a friend he was a part at the forefront of the organic foods movement. He said this is one of the biggest lies that has ever been foisted on the American people. He said we'd grow fruits and vegetables in one field, and that was just regular vegetables. The other side we would do the stuff, and it was labeled organic. And he goes, it was the same stuff. It was the same stuff. Are we being deceived when we go to the produce department and we have this big green organic section that I always get a chuckle when they spray the whatever they're spraying to wax and varnish their stuff every 30 minutes, so it looks wet and pristine while you're shopping. Is there a such thing as the organic green stuff anymore? I mean, I tend to think I just want to eat meat and eggs for the rest of my life. What do I do?
Well, first of all, I love what you're saying. So a Harvard medical student 2 weeks ago ate 720 eggs in a month, and to prove that it doesn't affect your cholesterol. And sure enough, he checked his cholesterol and it was lower at the end of that month, right? So there's a lot of misinformation. Eggs are a great source of protein. Meats are not bad for you. I'm a big fan of HEB. I advise HEB as a company. They're a great company. When they source their ingredients, they're sourcing, you can trust their sourcing. Now, here's a strawberry. I got a little thing of strawberries here. If I said, hey, is this strawberry healthy? You might say, yeah, sure. It looks good. I almost ate it this morning because I was hungry. So the average strawberry that's not organic has been sprayed over a dozen times with 7.8 different chemicals. Now, all of a sudden, the same strawberry looks a little different to you. So you either want to wash them good or buy organic, or be careful with what you choose. When the government is buying food, why are they buying this pesticide-laced food for our school lunch programs, right? So when you cook with oils, you can cook with healthy oils, avoid the seed oils. There's a lot of good stuff that people can do that they're just not aware of. So we got to start educating the public.
Yeah. And that's the thing. You mentioned eggs. I often argue with people. Everybody's an expert on nutrition these days because we have social media, right? So everybody has come away with their own conclusions. I love eggs. I think eggs are good. I think they're great. I'm going to adhere to every study that says eggs are good for you. But it is, and I love, like I said, I love protein. I love beef. I love chicken. I will tell you this as a side note. When I went into the hospital in 2008, I had just eaten a big steak the night before. And it swore me off of steak for a long time because I could relate to that abdominal pain with the diverticulitis, that the attack that happened. But I try to lean heavier on the protein. My point is, I would say that our food pyramid is one of those big blind spots, like the way that they've told us forever that, all of those breads and grains and carbohydrates and things that we're putting in our bodies, that was the fat part of the pyramid down at the bottom. Should we invert that whole deal, or is it basically the same? What should that pyramid look like?
Look, I think it's good to get protein. Most people are not getting enough protein, and most people are eating too many processed foods and too much food with chemical additives. So you really want to get rid of that stuff in the diet. That's why when you notice people going to a keto or paleo diet, they're getting healthier. And what's going on is it may not be the actual meat that's making them healthier. It's the absence of all the bad ultra processed refined carbohydrates. And so I encourage people to get a balance of what they like, be it fish that's sourced well with low levels of heavy metals. I like wild caught fish. An important thing is how you cook. So here's your traditional vegetable oil. And here's extra virgin olive oil. I like to buy organic extra virgin olive oil. This stuff sounds healthy, vegetable oil. It's not healthy. It's denatured at super high temperatures in order to make it last long. I think this thing expires in 2 years. I mean, anything that expires in 2 years, I mean, and this stuff, really healthy extra virgin olive oil should last about 6 months or so until it goes bad. So you don't want to cook with these, what we call seed oils, vegetable oil, canola oil, corn. You want to cook with the healthy oils that are not denatured. They're not changed with a chemical solvent. You want to cook with extra virgin olive oil, avocado oil, and coconut oil, things that are natural. They're cold pressed. They're not denatured in a chemical process. Now, you may say that's not a big deal, but every time you go out, guess which oil they're cooking with? The cheap oil that's chemically denatured. It's a chemical. It's not vegetable oil. It's a chemical. And it's now like 10 to 20% of the calories people are getting in their diet are from these chemicalized seed oils like vegetable oil. Avoid them. By the way, you look at a packaged processed food you buy off the shelf with like 1 million ingredients. I guarantee you one of the first 3 things on there is going to be soybean oil, sunflower oil. It's everywhere. And these are chemicals. They don't appear in nature. And when your gut experiences chemicals that do not appear in nature, guess what? It reacts with that inflammation. That's why you're doing well with your steaks.
So it's almost like we're this is a horrible analogy, but when you're talking about these things that don't appear in nature, most people would never consider smoking meth, right? Something that some guy cooked up in a Winnebago in the desert. No one it would never cross their mind to put that kind of poison that they've made everything with ephedrine to, whatever drain cleaner came out from under the sink. But yet we do that with the food we're eating. I mean, you go to McDonald's, the drive-thrus at noon are always packed. I don't care where you go. They're not dropping those fries. One, it's a fried potato, which is a problem in and of itself when you're consuming that level of, big thing of starch like that. But they're not dropping it in olive oil, extra virgin olive oil, or coconut oil. They're not cooking that in avocado oil. We know what they're doing. It's that, it's that stuff that's, I've often said, we we go to the bathroom and sit on the commode and read our phones. I miss the good old days. We used to read the shampoo bottles, and try to figure out what tetracyclate number 5 was, and while we were rubbing it into our scalp. If most people don't read the ingredients anymore, they don't pay attention to what it is they're consuming. Yeah. And I've often heard people say, hey, shop the perimeter at HEB. Go all the way around the perimeter. Avoid the aisles as much as possible. Is that good advice?
I've heard that too, and I think it is good advice to stick with the fresher foods, the things that don't, last on the shelf for 5 years, like a McDonald's hamburger. I think you could put it on your shelf for 5 years, and I don't think it'll grow mold or do anything. Now, the companies say, like, look, the kids prefer the colorful Fruit Loops, and that's why the same American company makes the colorful version with the chemicals for American kids and the version without the chemicals for Canadian kids, where the chemicals are banned in Canada. And they say, well, look, the kids prefer this. Well, kids prefer cocaine. It doesn't mean you give it to them. And if you want to follow this stuff, there's a great blog called foodbabe.com where this activist mother, Vani Hari, has done a great job sort of helping moms figure out what's healthy and what's not. That, by the way, French fries is made with 3 ingredients in Europe. It's made with over 10 in the United States. Same company, McDonald's, they have the food scientists have figured out how to put more chemicals to make them more addictive in the United States. Don't American kids deserve the healthier version of food that American companies make?
One would think. I can remember being in Moscow in 1994. Right after the fall of communism, and they had just put McDonald's into Moscow, Russia. And we ate there, and I thought it tasted a little different. It was like the lettuce and the sauce was a little different. But I thought, it's fascinating to me. That was the first time that it hit me that you could travel anywhere in the United States and you buy a Big Mac, it's going to taste the same in Wisconsin as it does here in Texas. I'm a grill guy. I love to cook, but I guarantee you I've never made the same hamburger twice. It's never tasted. How is it that McDonald's can have that type of processed food that no matter where it gets shipped to and who cooks it, no matter what minimum wage kid on high school break cooks that food, it's going to taste exactly the same. And as you said, I can drop a Twinkie behind the couch and find it 3 years later, open the package, it's going to taste the same. And it reminds me of the Clark Griswold, the vacation movies, the Christmas Vacation, where he says, what's the latest on that cereal varnish that you've created, that's supposed to last 30 years. We joke about that, but man, that's what's going on.
That's exactly.
And we're consuming it because it's a time factor, it's a convenience factor. We think, I'll deal with that later. But then all of a sudden you're 70 years old and you don't have, you can't even carry yourself around anymore. You no longer have the muscle tone, the frame, any capacity to take care of yourself at this stage. We're obese, and again, you had alluded to it earlier. People are pumping themselves with tirzepatide and Ozempic and the semaglutides, and they're putting these chemicals that we really don't know. Do you think that people, it's kind of off the topic, but I'm curious to know your thought on this. Is it better to use those types of medications to get the weight off and not have the obesity as a quick fix and then work on it? Or should we just say, nope, let's get in this thing. It's a marathon. It's the long haul. What should we do?
Well, the medical field is only giving lip service to the root causes. So they're going straight to the medications. The American Academy of Pediatrics is giving lip service to addressing the food supply as they're being paid for by the infant formula and food companies. And they're not talking about these root causes. So I have used Ozempic as a bridging therapy to get people to change what they're doing, because sometimes, people are so sick from their obesity, but it's not a long-term solution. And people have side effects from Ozempic. And you're also reducing your muscle mass, which, guess what? The number one predictor of how long you live is how much muscle mass you have in general. So we may be reducing the short-term complications of obesity, but accelerating your frailty in the long term because we're reducing muscle mass.
Yeah, people definitely want that quick fix button that they can push. What about fasting? I mean, what do we? Is there? Obviously, that's something that's been around for millennia. As long as people have been around, they've engaged in fasting. Should people engage in that on a regular basis? Should it be a planned out fast? What about intermittent fasting? Does that help reduce any? Because I mean, again, the poison is among us, right? I don't know that we can completely avoid at this stage the poisons that we're putting in our bodies. What are some remedies for that? Is fasting one of them?
Well, I think the most important thing is to stop using seed oil, stop taking so
Mm-hmm.
many pesticides, avoid the ultra processed foods, and cook. You mentioned you like to barbecue. You're always going to do better cooking than you are buying
Mm-hmm.
stuff that's already pre cooked.
Mm-hmm.
But look, I think there's, we have to look at everything. I think that everything's on the table. I think we have to look at all of it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to read Blind Spots. I like I said, I've seen so many different things that you've put out there, and you're doing a great work. And I know you're pushing against the grain in terms of what probably the majority in the medical field. Do you find that physicians across the board are they more okay with the system, or are they frustrated with the system of what's being put on their patients? What do you think the overall attitude? Because you talked about the trust issue. Are physicians, is it more of a let's just get them through? It's an assembly line type. Let's bring the patients through. Let's give them the therapy they need. Let's give them the diagnosis, and then boom. Because one of the things that frustrated me through the quote pandemic was this cookie cutter type of treatment where everybody's going to line up. They're going to get the shot. They're going to get the boosters. They're going to do this. It became a protocol more than a diagnosis and a treatment. Everybody was supposedly the same, and we know people aren't the same. What's the attitude of physicians towards their patients these days?
I mean, they're smart people. A lot of them know what's going on, and they're very frustrated. You've got record high burnout rates in medicine now. A third of doctors are burned out or have signs of burnout. We have the highest suicide rate of any profession in the United States. We've done a terrible thing to doctors. We've told them, get on a hamster wheel, focus on billing and coding. We're only going to give you limited tools to deal with these chronic diseases. And we've not given them the time or resources to deal with the root causes. So it's not a good time in medicine. And a lot of doctors are revolting. I write about them in the book, Blind Spots. I'm optimistic because we are seeing a revolution now to say we can't keep going down this path of poisoning the food supply and then just medicating everybody. Look at us. Look at our society compared to Europe and Canada. Look at the Amish community that still eats healthy, good foods from the soil and from clean animals. And look at the mainstay of the general public. So a lot of good stuff is happening right now. I think a lot of doctors are rising up. But, as long as we're going to measure doctors by their throughput, we're going to keep promoting this hamster wheel. Thankfully, a lot of doctors are getting off.
I need to go look for it. So I guarantee it's online somewhere. I used to have a cassette tape, and I used to share it with people, and someone finally kept it, and I never got it back, but it was called Dead Doctors Don't Lie. And it was a lecture on the part of a physician that talked about the lifespan of doctors. He's like, if doctors are dying so young, why are you trusting their opinion to keep you alive? And so I thought it was a pretty fascinating concept. It was interesting. I'd love to hear that again because it's been years since I've heard it. But I know there's some frustration. I talked to a number of physicians, a number of people in the medical industry who, I remember when I went to the University of Georgia at an orientation, they said, how many of you are here to major in pre-med? Half the hands went up. Said, how many of you are here to major in pre-law? The other half of the hands, he said, how many of you are here to major in pre-wealth? And they all raised their hands. And they said, it's funny how people go in with these ideas of what their future profession is going to be. And I know, I've got physicians in my family. I've got doctors in my family who have gotten very frustrated because this is not what they got into that for. And now, as you said, it becomes all about, coding and just all of the stuff that goes on, and they're not really practicing medicine anymore. So
yeah, corporate.
And then it's medicine. Like, well, let's get corporate medicine. Then let's get you on the table and cut you and do the thing. I'm dealing with. I've got a torn labrum in my shoulder. So you know what they do? They came. They looked at it. They said, okay, let's put you in physical therapy. Then they come back and they said, all right, we'll do a dye MRI. And then they're like, okay, we did all the physical therapy, so the insurance will pay for it. Then they're like, oh well, you still got to pay $1,200. because that'll go towards your deductible. And it's like, man, you're just on this crazy thing. When am I ever going to get, some real treatment for this thing? And so I think there's frustrations on the part of the doctors, frustrations on the part of the patients. And we're just getting sicker and sicker. And ultimately, I think it boils down to what we're doing to our bodies. We drink our alcohol. We're poisoning our system there. We celebrate with alcohol and, we impair ourselves from further success because we're putting that poison in our bodies. Yeah. And then, all the way to the foods we're eating. I'm scared of anything that comes from a wheat field at this point because I know what's been sprayed on it.
Sprayed, and they strip wheat of its fiber, chop it up mechanically to small fragments that function like sugar, and we're feeding ourselves basically sugar, stimulating the pancreas like it's a Twix bar almost every time we eat bread, thinking it's healthy. Right. And so, you're right. These are what's in the blind spots. I talk about alcohol a little bit in the book and marijuana. Good. People think, oh, it's totally safe. More people die of alcohol abuse than opioids and fentanyl. Mm-hmm. And yet we glorify it. Whatever happened to moderate drinking responsibly or avoiding alcohol, which is good for your health? So we need to talk about these things.
Well, I'm glad you wrote the book. I'm excited to get my hands on it. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to preach it from the rooftops. You're a voice that I trust, and I'm thankful that you do speak out. I'm going to let you go because I know your time is precious. You alluded to something, and it just came back to my head. Talking about the cases of autism in children. Is this a diet in the parent issue? If the mother is breastfeeding, do you think there's a correlation there in terms of what's being transferred to the baby in utero or the breastfeeding, or are we in a vaccine crisis? Do you have an opinion on those ideas? Because I know there's a lot of debate on that.
Look, I talked to a lot of experts and interviewed them for the book Blind Spots, and they believe that autism is associated with the microbiome changing. That is the bacteria that line the GI tract. And we do pass on our microbiomes from mother to child as a species. And so there are other things we do to alter that microbiome. And the world expert on the microbiome, he believes that it's associated with autism. And we've noted for a long time, by the way, autistic children have different stool in consistency and in the type of bacteria. So this is where we need to focus. We can't just keep medicating everybody. We need to talk about these root causes of our poison food supply.
Yeah, I'm convicted. I'm never eating again. That's it. At the end of this, that's it, Doc. I'm done. Hey, congratulations on the success of the book. New York Times bestseller list. The book is called Blind Spots. Dr. Marty Makary, Johns Hopkins University. Great work.
Thank you.
I know it's not a popular work. I know that you get plenty of pushback. It's controversial, but thank you for doing.
I don't think Fauci's going to be sending me a Christmas card this year.
No, that's okay. It's okay. I think we need more people. Speaking up, and I think there is a revolution going on.
Yes.
And it's happening with outspoken men and women like yourself who are willing to take the risk and do it. So thank you for doing that. It matters so much, and also thank you for your time with us today. So
appreciate that, Chad. Thanks so much. Good to see you.
You as well. Dr. Marty Makary, the book is called Blind Spots. I want everybody to get it. Doc, thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
See you later. Care. Thanks.
That's it, Sean. I'm never eating food again. And I felt convicted the whole time we were talking to Dr. Makary because I'm sitting over there looking at that bag of Chick-fil-A that we had for breakfast this morning. Man, there's something about those biscuits, man. They rub a little Jesus on them. They rub a little Jesus on those biscuits and make it taste good. And you know good well they're not cooking that chicken and the good stuff. So, listen, I'm at a point now in my life where the older I get, so I'll be 52 in December. People are sick of me saying that. They're like, you're not old. Listen, based off of what Dr. Makary says, we're aging ourselves. We're getting older faster. We're actually going in reverse while the medicines are keeping us alive. Our quality of life is not that great. And we feel horrible. We're not getting sleep at night. When we wake up, we're still tired. We're addicted to drugs and that they're prescribing for us, taking a handful of those things, and then don't even get me into all the supplements we're taking, and we're sleeping with CPAP masks. I mean, we're like Darth Vader in the middle of the night. You see these, you see those guys, and you see the straps on their face first thing in the morning when they come out into public because they've been sleeping with the CPAP on. But we're doing all these things just to not die. So, I love you enough to bring you guys like Dr. Makary. You've heard me talk about it. You've heard Sarah Gonzalez talk about it extensively. And we've had people who get upset with us over the years when we start talking about various nutrition things or different diets or different things that we're doing. And listen, I, for one, have never been the, quote, picture of health when it comes to nutrition. I live on the road, for crying out loud. But I think there are things, it's time that we wake up. If we're going to really, truly be a part of whatever it is that's going to happen in the future of our nation. Let's say things get hard, things get really difficult. We saw recently the aftermath devastation from Hurricane Helene in various parts of North Carolina and Georgia specifically, really, really bad, where people, they're going a long time without power, without supplies. If it weren't for mules and goats and people with private helicopters, these folks couldn't get anything. If you find yourself in a situation like that, of devastation, you want to make sure that you have taken care of yourself, built the muscle, put the protein in your body, you're circulating, breathing right. You're doing all of these things so that when hard times hit, you can actually survive. But folks, if you can't run through the drive-through, when hard times hit, most of us are going to be in a lot of trouble. And I often joke, we could probably live off of the fat of the land for a couple of weeks because Lord knows we've got the fat to consume that's built into our bodies. But what kind of fat do we have? We have built this crazy nonsense into ourselves and not consume the right things. Again, there's good fats, there's bad fats. What are we doing? What are we putting in ourselves? I want you to think about those things because I want you around for a long, long time. So you can come to my live shows, which you can find out about at watchchad.com. See that little segue right there? That's how that works. That's how you get people in the seats. Get them butts in the seats. But I want you to fit in the seats. We can't, listen, you come to my show, we can't make the seats any wider. So your butt has to fit in the seat, all right? So let's commit together to doing some things and making sure that we get a little more longevity and a little more quality of life about ourselves. Okay? Can you promise me you'll do that? Will you do that? Huh? Get the book Blind Spots. And Dr. Marty Makary has written a number of books. You can search him out, watch his videos on YouTube as well. His testimonies before the Senate, incredible. I mean, this is a man who's bold. He doesn't back away. He backs it up with the facts. He knows exactly what he's talking about, and I value his opinion very much. He's not some quack. He's not some flash in the pan or fly by the seat of your pants. He is a renowned physician that there's a lot of people. There's a lot of people that are listening to him, and they're people that are very important who could make decisions based on our lives. So let's get ourselves back together, okay? Who knows? The last remnant when the earth is gone and it's nothing but the cockroaches have taken over and the aliens have invaded and the apocalypse has happened and the human race has been annihilated. The only people left standing will be the listeners of the Chad Prather Show. See, that's what I'm talking about. What we should do, Shai? We should change the name of the show to The Remnant. The Remnant with Chad Prather. The Left Behind. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you. Let's look good. Let's look good, feel good. I want my clothes to fit better. I'm convicted, I'm telling you. Damn Chick-fil-A. I live for Sundays when I can't get those biscuits. Whew, they're so good. Blind Spots by Marty Makary. WatchChat.com is where all the fun stuff is. Come check it out. Hey, listen, our podcast is on the bubble, man. We have got to build our viewership. We've got to build our listenership. We've got to get more people that are tuning in. Even if they're going over to YouTube for a few minutes and watching a little bit of the Chad Prather Show, we've got to bust through that algorithm because the censors have throttled us. It's every little thing that we say and do. When we talk about a topic like this, I promise you, the social media big tech overlords do not like this conversation. They don't want us talking about these things. So, please, you may be one of those free speech Rumble people. You might listen to it on audio. do me a favor, jump over to the Chad Prather channel on YouTube, watch a minute or two of the show, bust through the algorithm, because again, those are the numbers that people pay attention to when it comes to advertising, when it comes to sponsors, when it comes to relevance, when it comes to rankings and ratings, all those things. Unfortunately, we are tied to the Google God. I don't like it, but until things change. And yes, we are over on Rumble. All you have to do is go to Rumble and type my name into the search engine, and guess what you'll find? A channel under my name. It's crazy. I know. It's insane that that's something that simple. If we just weren't lazy and we just use our little finger muscles to type out Chad Prather. Man, thank you to our sponsors who are part of this show week in and week out. And to those of you who listen to this show, thank you. God bless you. I appreciate you so much. And we will see you next time. The book is called Blind Spots, Dr. Marty Makary. Goodbye.